Hello everybody, Ryan from Jedi Dropouts here. Just a quick note before we get into the interview. Because of busy schedules, varying locations, and the variety of crowd sizes over this past weekend, the audio quality in these Atlanti-Con interviews is not quite up to our usual standard. And beyond that, the quality between interviews will fluctuate a little bit as well. That being said, I truly love how these interviews came out, and I once again would like to thank each and every one of our wonderful guests for appearing on the show. Okay, I've said my little piece. Let's get on to the interview already.
Jedi Dropouts. I'm your host, Ryan Taylor, and we're live at Atlanti-Con 7 in Corner Brook, Newfoundland. Here with a guest I'm very excited to be talking with today, Mr. Mike Feehan.
Hi.
Thanks for coming on the show today, Mike.
No problem.
So, Mike, you are the artist of DC Comics series Exit Stage Left, the Snagglepuss Chronicles. I get the title right there?
Yes, yeah. Exit Stage Left, the Snagglepuss Chronicles.
So I got a chance to read the book. I finished it yesterday. This is a modern retelling. Definitely not the Snagglepuss that you would remember from the Hanna-Barbera cartoon days.
No, definitely not. It almost serves in a weird way as like an origin story to those cartoons, which is something that I did not see coming until I got the last script, and I was like, oh, this is where this is going, but it comes from a very dark place. And I feel like if I were to go watch the cartoons now, keeping like this in mind, I'd be like, God, there's such a dark undertone to it.
Yeah, the rewatch is like those undertones now, right?
Yeah.
No, I have to agree. Like, I never would have expected that like the biggest emotional gut punch of a comic in 2018 was from Snagglepuss.
Yeah, it's like I feel like really fortunate to be on this book. Like, Mark Russell is an amazing writer, and he did fantastic work with the Flintstones comic last year, which has been nominated for like a ton of awards. So yeah, originally when I got the email from my editors asking could I draw talking animals, I was like, I think I'm drawing Snagglepuss. Like, I think that's what I'm trying out for. And I was like, is this cool? Am I excited about this? And I was just super stoked to be working for DC Comics, but this is not what I thought I would be doing. No. And then, like, after reading Mark's work on the Flintstones, I was like, oh, this guy's doing like incredible stuff with his characters. And then when I got the scripts, I was like, this is amazing. And anytime people would be like, Mike, I heard you got hired with DC. I'd be like, yeah. And they'd be like, what are you working on? And I'd be like, well, Snagglepuss. And they'd be like, oh, well, I guess they have to start somewhere. I'm like, no, but really, like, the script is nuts. And then when it came out, the reviews started coming out. IGN called it, like, one of the best 25 comics of 2018, which is, like, blowing my mind that I get to be part of it.
Not just saying that because you're here in the room. It's the best I've read this year.
Thank you, yeah. I just think I'm really lucky to get to be a part of it, like, to ride Mark's coattails of it. It's been crazy.
So you mentioned getting asked to draw talking animals. I'm gonna take a leap here and say maybe it's the first time you've ever had to try drawing talking animals.
Kind of. Like there's a couple of things like I've done that have dabbled in this, but like I did a magazine cover for the Scope, which was a magazine in St. John's years ago. I did a cover with them where I had like some kind of anthropomorphic guys, like one was like a reindeer, the other was a snowman, which isn't an animal, but they that's how I drew the cover of this thing. There's like a lot of things where there's this trend to, like, I come from a punk and hardcore background for like illustration. Like, I did a lot of stuff for album covers and t-shirt designs. And like back in like 2006, 2007, 2008, a lot of people were doing this thing where you draw like a regular dude who's wearing like a hoodie or like some punk band t-shirt, except their head is like a bear head or like an owl head or something. It was just like, that was the thing people were doing. I did that a lot.
I remember that.
So like I had done show posters where like a guy was like had a slug face. So it was like it kind of, I was like, when they asked have you ever drawn talking animals, I was like, yeah, kind of. And then that kind of did sketches for them of what my interpretation of the character would be, and they said, yeah, this is what we're looking for. So I just kind of did that, and like a lot of people have asked me like, how did you come about designing the characters? Was there a lot of like, what was your thought process? And it was like, they came to me and asked me to do this my way, so I just kind of did it my way. Like there was no real back and forth. It was like, you obviously want me to do my thing on this, so that's what I'll do.
How tricky was it to get the talking aspect of it, like, and to emote with these animals?
There's a photo that I've seen going around the internet a lot of one of these classic Warner Brothers animators, and he's at his desk, and I should know his name because I'm sure he's very, very famous. He's drawing Bugs Bunny, making a face on his drafting table, and next to him is a mirror, and he's making that same face in the mirror, and he's translating what he's seeing in his face into this animal's face. So I just did that method. Like I made a ton of, like I had a mirror on my desk. I was constantly making faces and studying like what I was doing, and then just trying to get an understanding of like what these animals. Like I wouldn't say that my style is like realistic. It's not really, but like I do like to pay attention to detail. So just like not making these look ultra cartoony, but still exaggerating these animal features enough to make it clear the emotions they're expressing.
And one thing I found when reading it was the animals still seem authentic to. I mean, it's crazy to say, that these walking, talking, anthropomorphic animals seem at all realistic in a sense, but they do. They do seem to still express in a way that an animal would, but with the human emotion. And you're giving credit to Mark here, but you really sold the emotions in the faces of some of these animals. Like, no spoilers, but a scene near the end of the run where Snagglepuss gets a certain phone call. The emotion in those panels is unbelievable.
I'm really happy with that, how that page turned out. That particular, like, I don't know, it's weird, like, it's like, I'm someone who, this is my first comic book, like, series, like, professional comic work. Like, I'm someone who, in every aspect of my life, feels like I do not know what I'm doing. And then I see people, like, point out, like, something, like, I've done on a page, and they're like, oh, I like how you did this, and I'm like, I didn't even realize I was doing that. And, like, that particular panel, I think there's, like, it's like page 11, issue 5. I can still remember what every page is on. But it's like, there's like a panel of him on the phone, there's a panel of like Lila on the phone, then there's like him receiving the news on the phone, and there's no background, it's just a blank, just focused on him. And like, I'm like, when I see that, that page has a punch, and I'm like, man, how did I think to do that? Where did I come up with that? So
it just comes naturally.
Yeah, it's just, on some level I have some idea of what I'm doing, which I'm impressed by, I
guess what we're all aiming for anyway, right?
Yeah,
to have some idea what we're doing.
I think a lot of artists have like imposter syndrome. I think a lot of people suffer from that, but like sometimes when I get to like have enough distance from something I've done and go back and look at it and be like, oh, why did I make that decision? It's like, maybe I do know what I'm doing on some subconscious level, so it's cool.
So I guess we skipped right on past. We should probably touch on I guess how this came about. Because I'm just going to quickly background my knowledge of you and how I've been aware of you as an artist. You first came into my radar with the Stranger Things art we were chatting about earlier today. And the CBC article I saw up there, and I'll readily admit I took the image of Joyce in front of the lettering and the lights, and I used that as a phone wallpaper for a couple months. It's a hell of an image. So that was that must have been interesting. Getting Netflix contacted you personally, if I'm correct.
Yeah, well they are, oh man, I wish I could remember the company's name. They have a company that manages all their social media.
Okay, yeah.
And it's funny because there's 2 different networks I did this for within the same like several month period. Yeah. So I'm afraid I'm going to mix up their names. So there is a company that manages Netflix is social media, and they run the Stranger Things, I guess, Twitter page and Instagram page.
Yeah.
And yeah, I had just done this piece of fan art for Stranger Things that I just posted on my Tumblr page. I had this idea to do this thing and then animate it like kind of like a very crude animation of the lights blinking. And it just kind of like blew up on my Tumblr, and like I got a ton of followers from it, which I was surprised by. And then later that year, there was a show on IFC called Stan Against Evil, starring like Janet Varney from Legend of Korra and John McGinley from Scrubs. Like it's essentially like an Ash versus Evil Dead style show, comedy horror. But they saw the Stranger Things piece and they wanted me to do some stuff for them. So I did the same kind of thing of like the lead character standing in front of the door, the lights flash on and off, and then you see monsters behind him. I did like a series of kind of animated GIFs for them. So this was becoming a thing that I was doing. And then almost like a year since I did the Stranger Things fan art, the Stranger Things social media account contacted me and said, hey, we want to commission you to do this for us as well. So I did 3 animated GIFs that they then took and added sound to that they used as their Instagram stories for a day. So it was like Stranger Things has like 2 million followers on Instagram, and it was like everyone got this notification of these animations that I had made. So that was a huge thing for me.
I mean, that's one of the more popular TV shows.
Yeah. So to be in any way associated with it was crazy. And like I had like 400 followers on my Instagram page, and after that I had 5,000 like in a day, which like it dropped by 1,000 over the course of the last year because people were like, this guy's been posting Stranger Things stuff, and I'm like, no, I draw Snagglepuss now. But it was cool. Like that was a cool thing to have happen.
So band posters, punk rock art, fan art, to blowing up Netflix. How did you get from these animated GIFs for Netflix and Stand Against Evil to DC Comics? How does that road look?
I always wanted to draw comics. Like it's something I was doing since I was a kid. Even though I wasn't like a comic book guy, I'm not someone who has like a huge collection of comics. It's like I just like drawing, and I thought comics were cool, so it seemed like the thing that I would want to do. But I went to school for graphic design. After I was doing these like show posters and band art in high school, it was like, well, I'll go do graphic design because that seems what you should do. But then I started working in the printing industry. I worked at the Telegram. And I did I ended up going to school for 3D animation in Toronto for a little bit, and I was just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I knew that I wanted to be like creative and draw stuff, but I wasn't sure what kind of career to go into. And sometimes people would say like, oh, you should draw comics. You draw like a comic book style. But I was like, I just thought that was like the same likelihood of like being a Hollywood actor. It seemed like there was a select group of people who do that. They're the best of the best, and it's this unobtainable job. But when I was living in Toronto, I went to my first comic book convention. So I was seriously like 21 or 22 at that point, and I went to this convention and saw artists there, and they were doing it, and they were just like regular people, and I could go up and ask them questions. And I Philly Jimenez, who's did like work on Wonder Woman and like I think like Infinite Crisis, just like this big DC Comics artist. He's worked on Spider-Man stuff too. He was doing a panel there, and it was the first time that I was actually hearing someone talk about like working in comics as a professional fan. And at this time, I was really starting to get into comics for the first time in my life, which was like kind of sad. Like I was like in my 20s being like, oh, what's Superman about? And then I was like getting really into DC. My brother is a Superman fan, so I'd be borrowing comics from him. And then I was like, oh, this is something that I want to do. So like when I heard people talking about it as a real job, I was like, oh, I'm going to start trying to do this. So that same year, I went back to Toronto to Fan Expo with this really crappy portfolio of just like Batman pages I had thrown together that are like the most embarrassing thing in the world. But then I just kept going back year after year for like 7 years or so, just like going to portfolio reviews, having people look at my work. Sometimes I would work with writers. I'd meet writers either at conventions or through like Twitter or through message boards on the internet after posting my work, and then we'd work on a pitch together, and then none of them went anywhere. But it was like I kept, every year I'd have new pages in my portfolio. I'd go back to conventions, meet with editors, and then the last few years, finally editors would be like, oh, like, yeah, you're getting there. Here's my card. if anything comes up, we'll let you know. And then I get super excited and be like, I'm working for Marvel, it's going to happen. And then like 3 years have passed and nothing would happen. But then last year I went to Fan Expo, just selling my prints in like the Artist Alley section. I went to a portfolio review with Marvel, which went really well, and then the guy was like super stoked with my work, and I was like, oh, this is it, this is a done deal, this guy loves my stuff. And then right after I got back to my booth, my girlfriend was manning it for me, and there was a DC review on the go at that same time. It was about 10 minutes left of that window that I could go do it. And I was like, I don't need to go to the DC review. I'm like totally going to work for Marvel now. Like, I love my stuff. And Elsa was like, no, you should definitely go to that DC review, like just in case. It's worth a shot. And I was like, fine, I'll go check it out. So full credit to her for making me go to the DC review. I met the editor, Jim Chadwick, who was a really great guy, and he was like into my stuff, but he was not, like the Marvel guy was like enthusiastic in this over-the-top way. And I was like, oh, this is done deal. But this guy was like really nice, really positive, but didn't have anything bad to say about my work, which is cool. But he was like, yeah, if something comes up, we'll let you know. So I was like, okay, that went well. And then a week later, I kind of followed up and said like, hey, it was nice meeting you. And he said, yeah, it was great meeting you. I'll hold on to your stuff if anything comes up. And then I think the next day he was like, oh, believe it or not, I showed your work to the editor who works next to me down here in California. She likes your stuff. She has a miniseries in mind for you. And then from there, it kind of just happened, like very, very quickly.
So a long story of trial and error, and
just like 8 years of just like beating my head against a wall, and just like highs and lows of like thinking like I was going to have a big break, and then nothing happening, and then finally it just like snowballed really quickly. So it went from like, I mean, it was that September was Fan Expo at the beginning of September. In August, I was leaving my job to do Snagglepuss full time. Not August, October. So it was, September, and the next month, it was like I had to go to my boss and be like, hey, I can't work here anymore. I am working for DC Comics now. Like, it happened so fast. It was like a Hollywood Reporter article announced the release of the comic, and I was like, in a meeting at my job as a graphic designer at the university, and like, we were in this important meeting talking about like the upcoming year, and like how campaigns are going to change and stuff, and I got a notification on my phone, and it was like, Hollywood Reporter tagged you in an article, and I was like, I have to quit. So yeah, it was crazy.
That's fantastic, man. I guess a good way to cap this off, at Jedi Dropouts, we like to geek out. That's our thing. We like to take away from the negativity of what's happening in the world and just focus on the positives and geek out a little.
Awesome.
So indulge me, if you will. If you could work on any existing IP, any comic you could imagine, what would it be, man? What's your dream job? Your dream book here?
Oh my god, that's a tricky question.
Yeah, right?
There's a lot of stuff that I love. Like, I'm a huge Batman fan. I have 2 Batman-related tattoos.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I have like a Nora Freeze Heart of Ice tattoo here, and then I have a Batgirl on my leg.
That's fantastic.
And I love Batman. I really am a fan of like Nightwing. I also love Superman, just like from a moral standpoint. I think like he's a really cool character that needs to be more popular like nowadays. But my style isn't suited to a lot of stuff like that. Like I'm someone who draws in like a almost like kind of European influenced open line style. Okay, so there's not a lot of heavy shadows. So like, I mean, there is a comic by an artist who passed away a few years ago named Seth Fisher, who's incredible and like a huge inspiration for me. A very open line European style. Who did a Batman comic called Snow about Mr. Freeze, actually.
Okay,
and it's a really cool book, but it's a very specific thing that you don't see very much used for Batman. So something like, I really like doing gritty stuff. So maybe something like something like Red Hood in like a kind of like a really kind of gritty way. Punisher would be great. When Snagglepuss came out, I got a lot of people compared my art to Steve Dillon, which was like a huge compliment.
I can see that.
So like Steve Dillon has like legendary work on the Punisher, so like maybe something like that would be really cool to do. I think I'd have a lot of fun doing that. My girlfriend actually has a Punisher tattoo, so with like everything would tie together.
Yeah,
so
sure.
maybe Punisher's it.
What came to mind when reading the book? Not even that the art is similar, but I I was reading it and I thought, man, this guy would do great to pair with Brian K. Vaughan.
I love Brian K. Vaughan.
He's my favorite.
Yeah,
absolutely. I'm like eagerly anticipating the next issue of Paper Girls, right?
Yeah, Paper Girls. In the final issue of Saga, he gave Snagglepuss a shout out.
Oh, really?
Yes, it's so.
Don't spoil it. I'm not caught up on Saga. I know there's a big.
Yeah, the thing, like, I've only been reading the trades, and I went out and because I saw someone posted on Twitter, I think Mark Russell wrote it on Twitter, that like, because the book is on a hiatus for a year, he kind of wrote a note in the back of, I think it's issue 54 is the last issue, and he's like, me and Fiona have worked very hard for these last several years. We're taking a break. If you still want to buy comics, I recommend Exit Stage Left, the Snagglepuss Chronicles. And I was like, I went out and I bought that issue. The last page of that book is a huge spoiler. And I was like, oh no, this happened, but he's shouting at my book. My favorite writer shouting at my book. So it was totally worth it. So yeah, I love, like, Ex Machina is like one of my favorite comics. Why the Last Man, he's amazing.
So thank you again for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it. You've got a website and social media. You want to plug your stuff?
Yeah, my website, like professional website, is MikeFeehan.com. Everywhere on social media, I'm Mike Seriously, so I'm easy to find.
It's an easy to remember tag, yeah. And make sure to go buy your copies of Exit Stage Left, the Snagglepuss. I almost said Snagglepuss. Whatever the hell that is. That's the Snagglepuss Chronicles. I cannot recommend this book enough. Best book of 2018.
Thank you.
For me so far, okay, and thanks for listening. Thanks for dropping by. And later.
This has been a Jedi Dropouts production.